It's time for episode 280 of the 3 Point Podcast, presented by the Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center. Check out memorialhealthcare.org for everything they offer up there. And make sure you sign up for the October 21st Go Green, Go Blue 5K Run Walk. I want to also thank our local partners, AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori and Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. And fellas, we're recording this on Sunday night, the first Sunday of NFL football, but the big breaking story, we got to get into. We normally catch up here, and I guess we're going to use this catch-up portion to talk a little bit about the whole situation in East Lansing and Coach Tucker. I mean, talk about waking up to a shocker when I'm scanning my phone and I go, what in the hell? What were your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, well, it was one of those things. I was working the Auburn Cal game last night. So, over there on the West Coast, 10:30 kickoff.
Oh, boy.
We didn't get out until, 2 o'clock or something, whatever. So, during a commercial break in the fourth quarter, I hop on Twitter, see maybe what else is going on in the college football world. Did not expect to see the few tweets that I was starting to see about Mel Tucker. Talk about, you talk about, news organizations dropping bombshells on a Friday heading into a weekend, trying to bury the lead. Saturday at 1:30 in the morning.
Right.
USA Today and ESPN dropped these stories. It was just kind of what the hell? I showed the few people I was working with. I was like, dude, look at this stuff. And we were all like, what? Even the producers were like, should we mention this? And they were like, no, let's we're in the fourth quarter of our game. No need to mention this. But anyway, so for anyone that doesn't see it, a lot of allegations right now. Obviously there's a lot of investigations and trials and stuff that is going to go on with Mel Tucker, but he's suspended without pay right now because of a lot of sexual assault allegations, again, like I said, and it's not looking good for him because, like I said, it's suspended without pay means that there's obviously a lot of smoke to the story. So they're letting it play out in court. They obviously want to dot their I's, cross their T's type of thing, but it doesn't look like he's going to be back on the sidelines, at least for Michigan State, anytime soon.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't look that way. I mean, what a bizarre 24 hours. And here's the thing. Before, we're probably not going to talk much about Michigan State X's and O's on the field, even though it's such a big week coming up against Washington. Yeah. I thought this team was really moving in the right direction. I think their quarterback Noah Kim has really been good. I thought they maybe could pull off an upset this week against Washington. They still might be able to, even though this is a huge distraction. And maybe that's the biggest bummer is just this guy who was supposed to be kind of this quote unquote, savior. They paid him, $90 million. He comes in. It's almost been embarrassment after embarrassment since he's been there outside of a Kenneth Walker, transfer in. If that doesn't happen, who knows what the Mel Tucker era even looks like, if he even makes it this far. But what a just weird, terrible, sad story that just – it's scary knowing that he is kind of a leader of young men. Mm-hmm. It's just, it makes you as we're all Michigan fans, but we all like Michigan State, man. We don't want him to be this kind of laughing stock isn't the right word, but this kind of embarrassment when it comes to these sort of things that keep on happening, man, since the Nassar thing. I mean, I remember going to a Michigan State March Madness or Midnight Madness event when I was 10, 11 years old. And all of a sudden a banner gets dropped on my head and it's accusing the players of, rape or whatever the heck the accusation was at that time. And that was in 2010. That was when I was 10 years old. So it's just been a nonstop negative spotlight on this great university for a long, long time now. And it's just a total debacle. And regardless of how you feel, whether, Tucker broke any rules or not, flat out, he looks horrible in this situation. The university looks horrible as a result. And regardless of what you think, I think his days are done. I think the whole suspension thing is more so just they're trying to get out of this buyout more than anything. But I think he's basically might as well have been fired today.
Yeah, I mean, a really good comment there, Jared, because a lot of people that listen to this podcast might think a couple are haters of Michigan State. And we're not. And so, I'm not. I mean, from my perspective, Michigan State University has been, right at the forefront since I was a little kid starting to watch football from the days of the mid-'60s with, Bubba and Webster and Duffy Doherty. Brad Van Pelt played over at MSU. You know how I stand with Izzo. I mean, if it's if it's against Michigan, I'm leaning to Michigan, but anytime else, I'm Michigan State to win all the way. And this has really been a disappointing, I don't know what you would call it, 20 years, with this stuff. I mean, they're bringing in D'Antonio, and I think that's a good move. But remember, his program wasn't totally clean when it came to this stuff. And it makes you wonder, the administration over at Michigan State, what goes on. And, and I'm not going to point specific fingers, but, the trustees, the presidents of the university, the different athletic directors have been in there. I mean, what in the hell is happening? We're just looking at this latest Tucker scandal, which it's a he said, she said right now, but there apparently is enough information for the university to make the move. I mean, I was telling you off air. I mean, I read this entire USA Today report. It was as thorough as can be. And, it's her side of the story. Let's make sure we're clear on that. And everything's still allegations, but where there's smoke, there's usually fire. And from her perspective and everything that was laid out in that article, Michigan State had no choice but to do what they did today. And I guess the big question that I'm seeing all over social media, and I agree with it, what the hell has taken so long for them to really bring this out and bring it to the forefront? Why did he get to coach 2 games so far? What the hell is going on over there?
Yeah, and to be fair, though, it's a lot of allegations, and that USA Today is mostly from her side, but he did admit to a lot of it, which brought on, the suspension and the whole lawsuit and everything. So it's not 100% he said, she said.
True.
He did admit to a lot of it. The reports are saying that at least in July, but maybe even all the way back to December, they knew about this stuff going on. And then all of a sudden, because this stuff becomes public, now they're going to suspend him. So that's basically what you're saying, Ted. Like, obviously you do want to see how some things play out. If all of a sudden some accusations happen, you're not just going to be like, boom, suspend him, fire him, whatever. You want to let, the legal process play out, of course. But when it was as deep as it was, as you basically laid out right there, it's insane to me that they let him, kind of like what Jared was saying, like he's a leader of this team. He's supposed to be forming these young men into, upstanding citizens and stuff like that, and being an example and everything. And you have to think he's as far from that as what you would want. As much as people, Michigan State fans or other fans of schools or, media can hate on Jim Harbaugh for maybe a little bit of a quirky character as he is, at least everything we can see from the outside looking in, he seems to be doing things the right way as far as trying to stand up for his players and trying to, be an example for them to be, upstanding citizens, good young men once they graduate from Michigan and all that kind of stuff. And it just seems like Mel Tucker, I don't know what happened. If it was something like he got a little in over his head, maybe the power went to his head a little bit, getting $100 million contract and basically everything given to him by the Michigan State University. Maybe, the greed got to him a little bit. You started seeing him on sidelines of NBA games and at professional UFC fights and boxing matches. And there's nothing wrong with that. Should be enjoying his life, of course. But, Jared, you've talked about the Instagram posts before with recruits and, a bunch of other stuff that just seemed a little off, I don't know, for a head coach at a big program like Michigan State. And now it's kind of coming to fruition that he clearly, things went sideways for him. And, you brought up Mark D'Antonio, and, he's the best coach probably ever at Michigan State. Yeah. He's one of the best in the history of the Big Ten, but he doesn't have a squeaky clean resume either. I mean, he had a lot of his players go through some legal stuff too. No program is squeaky clean, if we're being honest. But it's not like he's like this perfect coach with a clean track record. So my thing with bringing him back, I understand the fan base and some of the people in the administration probably do want to bring him back in because of the coach that he was for him. To me, when there's all this Nassar stuff went down and some of these other things they've gone through, like what they do, they brought Engler in, and that was just a train wreck. And they, it was like a good old boys club type of thing when they're trying to go through this stuff. I almost feel like you need to just go completely outside of MSU. You need to get anyone who has any ties to any of this stuff away from the program, because it just seems like if you bring D'Antonio back in, hopefully he can right the ship. But who's to say like some of this stuff doesn't keep going? And he brings some of the guys back from, like you said, the last 15, 20 years when it was kind of messy. And I know Izzo is up on a pedestal higher than the Empire State Building in East Lansing. He doesn't have a squeaky clean resume either. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that has gone on with his players. Jared talked about that banner that dropped on his head. And, we don't have to get into all that stuff. So it's one of those things that it's sad because you think about the parents and, sending your kids away to play for these coaches for, the next 3, 4, 5 years, basically supposed to be teaching them the right and wrong and getting them ready for life after school. And then stuff like this happens. So if he gets fired, there's like a 30-day window for the players of Michigan State that they can transfer basically like with no backlash because, like if your coach that recruited you gets fired, you can bounce. If he gets fired, and there's no telling what happens to that roster, they might be down to walk-ons, who knows? Or they might rally. Maybe D'Antonio will get them to rally. Who knows?
Yeah, I agree. I get what you're saying about, D'Antonio. Maybe it's time to just kind of wipe the slate clean with a new regime, just top to bottom almost, like administration, head coach, people that are overseeing the program, kind of like D'Antonio has been. But I think you do need him to come in and like kind of stabilize the ship. Yes, he wasn't a perfect, in terms of everything that went on in the locker room and all that sort of stuff. But like you said, no program is. But he wasn't doing dumb and weird and creepy things like Mel Tucker was. So at least we can make that separation where he's not the idiot that Mel Tucker was, which even if you say, this was clearly some sort of kind of relationship with Tucker and the accuser, basically, between these text messages and the numerous different phone calls they had. But just to try and kind of spark this sort of whatever it was relationship with, I think her name was Brenda. Is that correct? Yeah. Brenda, who's coming in to speak, Brenda Tracy, who's coming in to speak to the team about, rape and all the things that she's been through, to kind of view this situation as Mel Tucker trying to, like, I don't know, pounce or whatever you want to call it. It just was weird and off-putting. And it just makes you see those cigar videos, the Ferrari pictures, the riding around in the slingshot on campus. It makes that look even worse. But we don't even need to get into that, man. It's just time to move forward. The suspension, thank God this hearing is coming up, October 5th. We don't have to wait freaking forever for it. It's not like it's going to be at the end of the year. The decision has been made. He's out. And it's just a matter of time before they come to that officially. But Alan Haller, who was kind of the main guy leading the charge to hire Mel Tucker before he became athletic director, to me, man, this whole debacle has shown he's in way over his head. And that's what Graham Couch said. Yeah. Not Graham Couch, excuse me. Mick McCabe tweeted that out. And I agree with it 100%. What more do you need to see of this guy in terms of leadership? It's time for a new direction. Like you said, Matt, maybe wipe the whole slate clean. Administration, head coaches, everything. Hit the reset button after this year because it's been ugly.
Yeah, Haller's got to go too. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. And, you know me, I'm pretty conservative when it comes to betting, but I'm betting. I'd bet every bit of money that I have that Tucker will be fired. I mean, there's no getting out of this. I mean, it's a done deal. And it's sad to see because we've talked about, Michigan State, the players and the families. What happens now? What are your guys' gut feeling? Are they going to rally maybe for this Washington game as a team, but then kind of fall apart? Or are they going to be able to pull it together and put some sort of season together now that they've got the new interim coach and D'Antonio helping out? This could go one of two ways, right?
Yeah, I think maybe the Washington game, they might be able to rally and pick up a crazy W because it seems like, at least judging by, what you see on social media, on Twitter, the fans are going to rally around the players because kind of like what you guys are saying, the fans have nothing, or sorry, the players have nothing to do with this. This is a Mel Tucker issue. So I've seen a lot of, people on Twitter saying, us fans, we need to rally around this team. We need to show up to Spartan Stadium. Mm-hmm. If we want to if we don't want to go into a 5-6 year rebuild, we need to rally around these players and try and get them all not to transfer. So yeah, they might be able to rally a little bit, but part of it too is, I know, Jared, you were saying it looked like they were maybe figuring some stuff out. Their roster wasn't very good to begin with. They were going to struggle for 5-6 wins this year anyway. So if now they're losing their head coach, and especially if a few players transfer, I mean, we might be looking at another, season without a bowl for Michigan State. So I mean, I already said what I think. I think bringing D'Antonio back's a bad idea. I get what you guys are saying, because what he did establish, he rebuilt that program. I mean, Ted, you remember as well as anyone, that program was almost in shambles with like John L. Smith and some of those previous coaches.
Yeah,
So
Tucker's now passed him as worst Michigan State coach ever.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Wipe that 11-win Kenneth Walker season out the window.
Right.
I think it's one of those things where like, if you keep bringing back the same people, what's going to change? That's just my thing. Like, we've laid it out how ugly it's been for 15, 20 years or whatever. And I've seen people even saying like, you need to make Izzo the AD and do all this stuff. And I'm just like, I get y'all basically worship Tom Izzo, but he should not be the athletic director. Maybe when he's done coaching, but let's not act like this guy is like a deity and he's done nothing wrong. I understand Spartan fans. I mean, they bow at his feet basically, but
I don't think it's that far-fetched. I don't think it is.
I mean, I guess, but you see a lot of, I remember some stories down here in the SEC when former coaches go to become athletic directors and they like can't separate themselves. So I don't know, it might go
That's
well,
true.
but
I don't. No, it's time for Mr. Outside Hire, as they would say in the office. It's time for, I don't know, you go and get somebody who's clearly a great athletic director. I don't know, Ward Manuel or something. Give him an offer he can't refuse. Maybe some of this money you would have paid to Mel Tucker, and you just hit the reset and you go back to square one. In terms of your question, Ted, I think I was maybe more so impressed with Michigan State these first 2 weeks than you guys were. I thought this is a team that was going to kind of exceed expectations. I thought maybe it's an 8-win team. And I've been telling people I thought they were going to upset Washington this week. I don't know about that anymore. You don't know, like you said, you don't know what team you're going to get. You're either going to get, the super inspired, playing with their hair on fire team, or you're going to get a team that's going to lose by 40 because their minds have been on other things all week. I don't know. I will say, coming into the Michigan game, I would have much rather have played a Mel Tucker coach team than a D'Antonio team. I don't care if D'Antonio has barely any say in what's going on. There's something about him on those sidelines that immediately gives Michigan State a boost against Michigan. It's almost like Jim Harbaugh, how he's figured out how to beat Ohio State and Ryan Day. D'Antonio has always had that. So that makes me a little bit nervous in that sense, but it's just depressing. I mean, how much would we rather just be talking about, a great upcoming game against Washington, 2 unbeaten teams, Penix Jr. coming to town, 5:00 start. It's just a bummer that's not what we're going to see.
Yeah.
Well, this is Sunday and this was the hot topic, but I agree with you. Let's move on, talk about some other good stuff in the world of sports. We'll have the prep spotlight coming up here in a moment. I forgot to promo Tyler from Michigan High School Football Frenzy will be joining us in this next segment. So we'll have it all going next. Brought to you by Jacobs Insurance right after this. All right, guys, it's time now for the Prep Spotlight presented by the Jacobs Insurance Agency. In just a little bit, we'll have Tyler from Michigan High School Football Frenzy. But first, we'll take a look ourselves here in some of the big games that just took place. Corunna down Brandon 44-7 last Friday night. I was there for that game. Wyatt Bauer continues to ball out, man. 8 of 9 passing, 221 yards, 3 touchdowns, ran for another 121, 3 more touchdowns, had a 71-yard touchdown called back. I mean, you can't say enough about the Bauer boys, but Wyatt had a real special night Friday night.
I know you mentioned you were there on the sidelines. I was trying to, keep up with your live tweets. I don't think I could refresh fast enough with the touchdowns. I swear every time I reopened Twitter, it was Eddington touchdown, Bauer touchdown called back. And it was just like, what is going on out there? But awesome game for sure.
Yeah, you would think that he's on his way to a 1,500-yard passing season, 1,500-yard rushing season. Who knows, 30 to 40 plus touchdowns. I mean, it's been awesome to watch. And you read the box scores, you see your highlights on Twitter. But I'm excited to go see a game. Hopefully, I get to Corunna Goodrich. I'm excited to see what this team looks like in person, man. It seems like they got a lot of good mojo rolling.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, this team is made for turf. I think pretty much I was asking your dad, John, how many schools now have the turf? And every school, I think, in the Flint Metro League that Corunna's in has turf other than Owasso. There might be another one, but schools are going to the turf. And man, when you got speed to burn like Corunna and the Bowers, man, that's a recipe for a lot of points. And they are definitely outscoring their opposition. And I got to tell you guys one thing too. I am really digging being on the sidelines. I mean, it's a whole different world from being up in the press box. I mean, I don't have to do a whole lot of prep. I show up to the game, but I'm covering it for all our followers out there. I put it on my own site at Ted Fattel, but we share some of the better clips on 3 Point Podcast. We don't want to just drown people because I am constantly. Here's how I do it. I take video every single play, and if it's not a dud play, I delete it, go to the next play. Nice. But you're right, Matt. By the time sometimes some of these plays get downloaded, it's ready for another play. I got to get right to it. So I'm having a blast. And this is kind of like it's come full circle for me. I remember back when I started out, I was strictly covering Corunna games. I would go to other games in the playoffs. I followed a lot of Tony Anise, Montrose teams when Corunna was knocked out, and be down on the sideline. And it's just a whole different world down there, man. You see the pads popping, you see the real speed. It's awesome. I'm loving it.
I'll be honest, you've kind of like you've made me, because that's I mean, Jared, you did it too for Fox 17. I did it for I think two high school football seasons. I was going on the sidelines at part of there, with Jason Hutton and the crew over there, shooting a couple games on Friday nights. It's fun, especially if you like high school football like us. But being down there on the sidelines and shooting the touchdowns, the energy, the crowd, and like you said, hearing the pads pop, it is really cool. I can tell you're enjoying it. It's fun. And you mentioned Owasso. You brought them up. I know we were talking about next week's game, or I guess later this week, the Owasso Corunna crosstown rival. We were hoping for the 3-0 versus 3-0. I know Owasso did fall to Clio last week. So, I mean, I think it was a battle with Clio from what I saw. And I mean, they might be able to put up a little bit of fight. We don't want to say anything too bad, but it seems like Corunna is going to be the heavy favorite.
It's a bummer they lost.
The big thing I was going to say, what did I see? That Corunna or the Clio running back rushed for like 400 yards or something crazy.
I didn't see that. But
he rushed for like 400 yards and 6 touchdowns or something. So that just made me like, man, I mean, what you were laying out, Ted, with Wyatt, they might have a little bit of a field day there at Wilman Field.
Well, you talked about the Owasso game. They got beat 50-36. It was weird. They led by 4 at half, but fell apart there in the second half. And check out this stat line. Their quarterback, Austin Blaha. I don't know what happened to their original starting quarterback, but Blaha had 4 touchdown passes through 4 picks. You don't see that stat line.
It's like a Jameis Winston like stat line.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like.
Some of the other games of note: Chesaning down Mount Morris 36-0. The Indians picked up a lot of confidence, obviously, in that win over New Lothrop. They improved now to 2-1. Solid play behind Braden Florian and Mason Struck. That was the Military Classic. It's always neat when the schools in our area, pay tribute to our military people, and Chesaning does it about as well as anybody. We know Ithaca has the whole field in red, white, and blue stuff and dedicated to our armed forces, but they do it up right at Chesaning as well. In 8-man football, Byron's still trying to figure it out. 62-0 to Morris. Wyatt Cartier and Joel Fisher had 3 touchdowns each in that one for the Orioles. New Lothrop picked up a big win over Clarkston Everest, 26-15. Hornets now 2-1. Ovid Elsie continues to roll. Trace Tokar, 16-20 passing, 221 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's only a junior. And I talked about Ithaca. They downed Saginaw Novell 58-7. They're definitely going to be a team to reckon with in Division 8 for sure.
Yeah.
Also, a couple quick cross-country notes. Owasso girls took first place in the 11-school Bath Invitational, and New Lothrop boys first place at the Genesee Invitational. That gets us up to speed here locally. Let's take a look at some of the other stuff going on in high school football with Tyler from Michigan High School Football Frenzy right after this from Jacobs Insurance Agency.
All right, let's keep this prep spotlight going. Again, as always, brought to you by our friends at Jacobs Insurance. We'll bring in now friend of the pod. You've been on a few times now. You were in on the Prep Pigskin preview. Tyler, you run the Twitter account, Michigan High School Football Frenzy. Everyone out there, give it a follow, especially if you like high school football in Michigan, at MICHFB Frenzy. And, he keeps you updated on everything going on with those Friday night lights. So, Tyler, we appreciate you joining us. And 3 weeks in, is it already crazy? A third of the regular season is already done.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it has flown by. I feel like we haven't even got our got our bearings underneath us, and we're already a third of the way through the regular season. The playoff push is already on. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yep. Is there anyone, so, thinking about the teams that you kind of been keeping your eye on? I know in the prep pigskin preview, you were mentioning teams like Frankenmuth, Ithaca, Petoskey, any other ones that going into the season, you were thinking they were up here and maybe they've been a little disappointing? Any other ones that are maybe surprises? Just maybe what are a few teams 3 weeks in that either good or bad, you're kind of surprised with?
Yeah. One that kind of surprised me on the negative end was Muskegon Catholic Central. They've taken a couple big losses that we're not used to seeing, and then just barely edged out Benton Harbor 18-14. So it's not very often that you see that happen to Muskegon Catholic Central. They're usually a powerhouse, starting 1-2 with a kind of iffy win, kind of compounded by the fact that the team that beat them, New Lothrop, kind of blew them out, and then New Lothrop went over and got blown out by Chesaning. So I mean, it just kind of that weird triangle. You usually don't see that very often, but yeah, Muskegon Catholic Central on the negative end kind of has surprised me, maybe disappointed a little bit.
The one team that I love that you always talk about, and I fell in love with them. I'd never heard of them before until the state finals last year, Gladwin. I'm hoping I get to see them at the Ford Field again this year. How have they looked to start the year?
Yeah, they've been good. I think they definitely have been challenged at times. I think this week will tell a lot. They go to Clare this week. I think this will kind of be the game you can kind of judge them on. They played Ogama Heights in week 1 and kind of struggled in the first half, maybe trying to, get everything together, trying to pull themselves together for the first week. But then pulled away in the second half, and then they've kind of had some, lesser opponents the last couple weeks. So I think that playing a good, solid Clare team that's always well coached, that's fundamentally sound, I think that'll be a good test for where they're actually going to be this year.
Yeah, that Clare facility up there is a beautiful high school football field. So if you're going to go to that game, that'll be a lot of fun. You're talking about Gladwin a little bit too. I mean, rehashing it just a bit, they won the state championship on a field goal last play of the game. And, I was going to talk about our Corunna Cavaliers a little bit more. They have a really good kicker, Braden Anderjack. And, it could, when you get deep in the playoffs, a kicker can be really, really important at the high school level, especially, right?
Yeah. I mean, you don't see the inconsistency of a high school kicker is going to be a lot more than obviously the college and pro level. So if you have a good one, you really want to stick with them, because that can help you, especially like in times like that. We've seen it a couple of years ago with Unity Christian and Chelsea, when Chelsea kicked a long field goal to complete the long comeback as well. So yeah, it can be a weapon, especially deep in the playoffs in these super tight battles. If you can get a guy that you can trust to just get in field goal range, then that's definitely the guy you want to ride.
Yeah. I have just a little bit of a general question for you, but you seem like the ultimate I just love football guy. How does it feel to just be back on the sideline this year? Does it feel like it's like kind of part you're whole again? There's a part of you that leaves in the winter and now you're whole. How does it feel?
Yes. Yeah. My schedule, I prefer it to be crazy. I prefer, running up and down the sidelines and, being up in the booth. I was blessed enough to be up in the beautiful press box that East Grand Rapids has built this past weekend. Yeah. It was fantastic. The facility's super nice. I walked right up there and immediately they were super happy to see me and greeting me and stuff like that. And yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful spot to be. But yeah, definitely I prefer being on the sidelines, running up and down, trying to get good footage, trying to cover the game the best I can. But yeah, this is definitely the best time of year. I mean, you got Thursday night football, then you got Friday night lights, then on Saturday you got college football, Sunday NFL, Monday night game. Like this is the time where I feel at peace. Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, and especially the first 2 weeks there were a lot of Thursday games. Obviously some Fridays, and then there's always some Saturdays still sprinkled in for high school football anyway. Another thing you mentioned in your a previous interview with you and then the prep pigskin preview were teams moving divisions. Again, I mentioned Ithaca. You brought up a few other ones that changed divisions that you were kind of keeping your eye on. Yeah. Anything there that now going forward you're you're excited about, or any teams that you're like, man, they're just going to make a run because they, maybe like in Ithaca, they moved divisions and
Ithaca is the big one for me right now. I was fortunate enough to be there against Standish Sterling Central. They played, got a good win, 39-26. Standish scored late to kind of make that look better than it was, but it was all Ithaca. It was all Jackson Kahn. Their quarterback was just lights out, threw for over 400 yards. He was awesome. And then this past week they beat Saginaw Newville 58-7. So, I mean, and from here on out, 9-0 is not out of the question whatsoever. Their schedule sets up really favorably to really just sharpen the iron, try not to get any injuries here, and I think they're going to be a deep threat, which is weird to think about. Ithaca possibly playing at 10 a.m.
Right.
The first game of the year, you're not used to that. Usually they were the last game. But yeah, it's going to be weird to see them in Division 8, and it looks like they have a legitimate shot at making a pretty deep run.
Is there a player? I mean, you've been all over the state. EGR. I mean, you're not kidding about their facility. It's number one in the state. It really is. With the
beautiful
lake behind the away stands, the glass press box. It's awesome. Is there a player who's really kind of surprised you and caught your attention this year?
Yeah. So week 1, actually, we got to see Northville play. Northville has really surprised me so far. Their defense looks unbelievable. They've beat some really good teams, and now their schedule is starting to kind of look almost like Ithaca's. I mean, it's not nearly as easy. Still, the KLA is tough to play in. But Drew Rankin, the defensive back there, I watched him. He's probably about 5'9", and I watched him against Brody Cozen, who's committed to Indiana. Locked him up completely. Kid's about 6'6", locked him up, and then Desmond Steffens as well as. He's a defensive back that's committed to Boston College, and he locked him up as well. So he was lights out. Drew Rankin is one guy that I could definitely see being a really good steal for like a D2 or D3 team. Yeah, he could absolutely be one of those guys.
You aren't kidding about Northville, man. I have a buddy who went to Northville. He's an alum. He's been to a couple games this year. They seem to be the real deal. They beat Clarkson week 1. Clarkson has been, competing with Southfield A&T, who just beat Cass Tech. I mean, Northville could beat anyone. Do you think that they have maybe a Ford field trip in the future?
It's very possible. Their quarterback, Isaac Pace, has stepped up really nicely. They had a quarterback by the name of Luca Pryor last year that was really, really good. Ended up actually committing to Calvin, and he's over there helping build that program. But yeah, he was lights out last year, and Isaac might be on pace to even do better than that. I mean, if their defense plays the way that they have, I mean, they'll be in every game. Their defense is keeping them in every game. And if their offense can just score enough, that, yeah, absolutely. There's no reason why they can't make a pretty deep run. The only problem is running into Belleville.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Tyler, before we let you go here, where are you off to Friday night? And again, tell our listeners best spot to catch up with you.
Yeah, so this weekend I definitely am thinking I'm down to 2. I know that you guys told me I got to get to Owasso, so it's very possible I end up going there and watching Corunna. I want to see them, and I want to see the facility. But Claire Gladwin is on my list as well. So probably be about Wednesday before I know for sure. But
if you're looking for atmosphere and an all-time facility and setup, Corunna versus Owasso Wilman, that's what you're going to get. But if you want to see probably a better game, it's Claire versus Gladwin probably.
Yeah. And seeing the brothers play as well is definitely part of the reason I want to catch a Corunna game sometime this year. So
they're playing real well right now. I'll tell you that. Again, tell our listeners.
What would be the one, Ted, and in a couple of weeks when they play Goodrich, right?
Goodrich would be a good one. At Corunna's field, they have a nice setup too, and that'll be a great game.
Yep, that one's on our radar as well. That one definitely could be the one. But MICH FB Frenzy on, I guess, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
We got links to Prep Red Zone. I write for them. I got articles coming out all the time, and then I got a link to the Instagram as well, kind of the more photos and videos of, kind of the sights and sounds that I see on Friday nights. So, but yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, and hopefully everyone can come follow along.
All good.
Yes,
Appreciate the time.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me again.
Jacobs Insurance Agency has served Shiawassee County and the surrounding areas since 1977. Just like 3 Point Podcast, we've had 3 generations: Gary Jacobs Sr., Gary Jacobs II, Brian Jacobs, and myself, Noah Jacobs, serving our community with offices in Waterford and Owasso on M21, just west of Home Depot. Stop in or go online to jacobsinsurance.com to get a quote or get your questions answered by our team. Jacobs Insurance is a proud supporter of our local schools and the proud sponsor of the Prep Spotlight. Insure everything, local, independent, and trusted. It's our family working together to protect yours. That's the Jacobs way.
Awesome for Tyler to join us. I mean, he's got a tough decision coming up on Friday night, which game he's going to go to. I mean, a Corunna versus Owasso, at the atmosphere at that game versus, a great matchup between Clare and Gladwin. I don't know what I would pick, but let's talk about some pro football. Our Lions, man. Before we get into the actual game, the storyline that kind of evolved from that game was Mike Tirico's comment. I actually sent it to you guys. And I'll be honest, I sent it before this became this whole, nationwide story. I just thought it was more so confirming what we talked about on the pod last week, which was as soon as those injuries happened to the Chiefs, people were going to discount everything that the Lions did in that game.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Ted, you're the one that really kind of came out guns a-blazing on this story. I didn't think what Tirico said was that bad. Was it the best thing I've ever heard an announcer say? Was there really a purpose for it at the very end of the game when everything was said and done for him to say that? No, I bet you he regrets it. But
he does.
I thought the outrage was maybe a little bit overboard, but you were kind of leading the charge. So explain to me why it was justified.
Well, I'll explain it exactly. It's a national broadcast. The Lions, I don't care if if the Chiefs are missing 2 of their better players. The Lions just won the opener nationally for everybody, and it's the timing of what he said. It was, I mean, if you're watching that game live, and I assume you were, I know I was, and when he said that, immediately I went, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? He's saying asterisk in the NFL? Give me a break. So I was outraged. I was, but I also give the guy a break. I mean, you're saying something on live TV. I don't think it was intentional. He lives in Michigan. He's a professional broadcaster. Okay. That's the kind of story that should have disappeared like 24 hours max and then move on. But Lion fans are still harping on that. Get over it. Get that inferiority complex behind you. This team is different. Move forward. Let's go.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest. I was pretty annoyed with it too, mostly because, like you said, Jared, it's kind of what we talked about last week. It was almost like in some sort of way, people are going to find a way, if the Lions win, to discredit it. And he did walk it back. He has done a couple interviews and people have asked him about it. And, he basically said, listen to the rest of the broadcast. I was talking glowingly about the Lions the whole time. I don't think he literally meant asterisk, and he said maybe asterisk was the wrong word. Yes, he was just trying to basically say, this was a big note that Travis Kelce and Chris Jones were hurt. He just chose maybe the wrong word. But in the moment, like you said, Ted, it was it just felt like another way that people are going to take a shot at the Lions and say this win doesn't count. Because, as we know, injuries happen all the time in the NFL. The Bengals earlier today, we know Joe Burrow's been hurt and is still banged up, and they laid an egg. So are we going to say that win is an asterisk, for the team that they played? And, so we know injuries happen all the time. So that's basically what it comes down to. But that was one of the most fun games to watch as a Lions fan in recent history anyway. Everyone that I saw at work the next day was just basically giving me hugs and just oh, that was the coolest game. And I was like, you really have no idea how awesome that was as a Lions fan to watch them. I mean, it wasn't like a blowout one way where there wasn't any drama. For them to battle with Patrick Mahomes, the defense to come up with big stops, Jared Goff to basically go, head to head with the best quarterback in the league. And he didn't outplay him, but he beat him. And you can see what this offense is going to be with Gibbs, St. Brown, when Jamison Williams comes back. The offensive line is just dominant. I mean,
yeah, they look good.
I just hope. I told some people at work, I just hope this isn't the peak of the season.
Right.
That's the only thing. Okay, this is awesome, but now build on it.
I don't think it will be, and especially watching the NFL today and watching, the Bears and Packers and the Vikings getting beat. I mean, it's Detroit's division to win, and Campbell knows it. And I'll tell you what, he's already proven it in the last 2 games they played with the Packers and now Kansas City, both road games, and he's got balls absolutely gigantic. I mean, going for it there on that 4th down call and getting it, but the balls to go for it. And really, they drove it downfield. They kept themselves in the game with that drive. I mean, the team picked up the confidence at that point, and it definitely wasn't the SOL, because the Lions then closed it out at the end when they needed to. I mean, that was one of the more satisfying Detroit Lion games that I can remember. It really was.
It was satisfying. It was unbelievable when they won it. I mean, I was like laughing as the clock was dwindling down. It was a little bit concerning. I almost felt like the Chiefs lost it more than the Lions won it down the stretch. And I mean, in the NFL, you take wins any way you can get them.
That's right.
And just to put a bow on the Tirico thing, is there an asterisk? Would I necessarily use that word on this win? No. Was it a great win? Yes. Is it obviously not the Super Bowl winning Chiefs without those 2 guys? No.
Right.
It's still a playoff team. It's still Patrick Mahomes. It's still at Arrowhead. It's still one of the biggest wins of my lifetime as a Lions fan, probably the biggest. Was it the upper, beating the Super Bowl champions? Maybe not. You can't put it to that level. Anyway.
That's fair.
I was a little bit worried about some of the things I saw. One, this was the biggest shocker to me. I thought Ben Johnson's play calling was left a little bit to be desired.
A little vanilla, wasn't it?
I didn't think it was what we normally saw from him. I'm not worried about it. I think he'll be just fine. He'll bounce right back. But just in terms of the one key 4 down drive, or 4 down, dear God, I can't speak, man. All right. Anyway, so the four plays that really concerned me was when we ended up turning it back over to the Chiefs on that 4th and 3 where we threw it. We went run. Gibbs didn't touch the ball on any of those runs. And then we went a throw on 4th and 2, nobody open at all. It gets batted down. I thought that was a really rough spot where if this was the Chiefs in midseason, Mahomes makes you pay there. Mm-hmm. Or if Mahomes has maybe a weapon that can catch one of those passes, they end up getting into field goal range there. Or if that one holding call they had when they got a gain of about 20 to Sky Moore didn't happen, we end up losing that game anyway. Another thing that worried me, I'm going to say a lot here, David Montgomery. I don't know. I kind of expected more from him. I know it's just one game. He looked a little bit small. I thought he was a little bit bigger than what he looked like. Maybe that's because he had number 5 on, which I love, by the way. But I wanted to see a little bit more juice from him. Gibbs, he's everything that was advertised. I mean, only 9 touches, 60 yards, but wow. When he gets the ball in his hands, I mean, you can't take your eyes off of it. Nope. He is so freaking fast. He's electric. I love seeing it. My other last concern, I really do think we need another weapon at wideout. And I know Williams is coming back. I'm not sold on him. I'm not. Yeah. I know other people are. I'm not there yet. And the rumor was floated out there about a potential Mike Evans trade.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you what, I'd love to see that happen.
What would they have to give up? What would they have to give up to get him? A second, a third?
Couple picks, you would think.
Couple picks.
Yeah.
It's worth it, in my opinion. I think this is a win now team. Obviously, they're young, they're building. But I just think they could really use one more piece on that offensive end, and I think he's the perfect candidate for it. So I would love to see them make a trade. With all that being said and done, it's the biggest win as a Lions fan of my lifetime. I never thought in a million years we'd win that game. So to win it, I don't care how it happened. I don't care how ugly it looked. They got it done. So I can't really complain too much.
Yeah, because normally those would be games that they would figure out a way to lose. They would let Mahomes score in the last 20 seconds of the game to lose or something like that. So yeah, it was cool to watch. I mean, the Jameson Williams things, I think obviously he's very unproven in the NFL right now. The one thing that does concern me, the thing that he's supposed to bring to the table is stretching the field, deep balls. And Jared Goff doesn't really throw the ball deep very often. So it's almost kind of like, okay, Jameson Williams might have this skill, but is Goff really even going to throw him the ball like that? Because, St. Brown seems to be the underneath crossing route, dig type of guy. And then Jameson Williams is supposed to be over top like Tyreek Hill. And Goff doesn't really push the ball down the field that often. So I'll just be curious to see how that plays out. Yeah, the Montgomery and Gibbs thing, it's almost like they were trying to feel it out, see what they got out of Gibbs. Yeah. Let's just see what he can do. And I'll be curious to see how they play out, because right now Gibbs almost looks like he's got to be on the field. You have to figure out a way to get him 15 touches, 18 touches a game. I don't care what it is. That little swing pass they threw to him, like you said, right when he caught the ball, he was 10 yards up the field. Yeah. So you got to figure out a way to get him the ball. And, the other side note, Tirico was one of the big things. The Chiefs' right tackle lining up in the backfield every play. And he was basically false start every play. It was just like, what is going on? How does everyone see this and the referees don't? It's not like it was one time. It was literally every play.
Terry McCauley saw it, and he said it right on the broadcast. I couldn't believe it, man. He ripped him. He said he's doing it every time.
Right.
It was bizarre.
When the rules analyst says that, it's like, hey, what is going on? And then they finally did call it the one time at the end of the game that helped the Lions out. But that was just bizarre. That was bizarre.
Yeah. Well, we're going to move on to college football, but one final thing. I mean, we've talked about it before, but Holmes, the draft. I mean, boy, did they plug some holes with quality players or what that are playing Brian Branch now and contributing. Yeah.
Brian Branch look makes some plays. I mean, Campbell, I would have liked to have seen maybe more from him. That was another kind of what's going on with this. Though? He's supposed to be an NFL ready linebacker and he's not even starting. That was maybe a little bit concerning, but I have one final kind of hot take. I don't even know if it's hot, but you guys might really disagree. Is Aiden Hutchinson overrated? And I'm saying this, he's a great player. I love him. I'm glad we drafted him. It was the right pick. He plays hard. He's the right culture guy. But I think people were putting him on this like kind of Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa, TJ Watt, like kind of level. And I just don't know if he is that.
I think that's right where he's at. He's working his way to that point. He's real. He's the real deal.
I mean, think about
his second year.
This was something that I'll just give him a shout. Phil Anise was kind of talking to me about, buddy, when I was golfing. Basically saying, like, when you look at Hutchinson's sacks, it's not like he's Von Miller, off the edge there and a lickety split. It's like it's the quarterback scrambling right. He's, evading some other rusher. And then Aiden Hutchinson is, trying hard and he gets there, late and he makes the sack and he makes the play. He obviously played great in the Green Bay game last year. We remember that. I just was looking for him to make a play down that stretch of that Kansas City Chief game as they're, in 2-minute drill or whatever it was, those last 6-7 minutes. And he just never had that game-breaking sack. I'm not saying he's not going to get there. I just worry that we maybe have overrating what Aiden Hutchinson is and passing on guys like Jalen Carter, who looked like a man possessed for Philadelphia today, had a huge sack in a critical spot in that game against New England. I don't know. I'm being a narcissist. I don't want to be because the Lions seem to have turned the page. We're into the new year, but that was maybe one of my hot takes that I had from week one and maybe just from his rookie year overall.
I think one thing to remember with that little comparison you did, Jalen Carter was going against Mac Jones, who probably is as fast as Ted is right now. And then Aiden Hutchinson is going against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, who know how to dial up quick passes and stuff. So
and a cheating right tackle too.
And a cheating right tackle. So
I don't want to like Aiden Hutchinson's a 10 sack a year guy. He's great. He's a great player that you want on your team. I don't know if he's that, defensive player of the year type caliber. I'd love to see him get there. I haven't seen it yet.
He had three interceptions last year too.
He was a great. He played great.
I know. I'm just listen.
You're getting swayed, but you're getting swayed by your golfing partner. That's what it is.
Well, because it was something I was kind of thinking as well. Because I was talking to my coworker. I was like, man, dude, place a bet on Aiden Hutchinson to get a sack today. It's a no brainer. Plus 165. Never got it.
Yeah.
And the end of the day with 3 tackles, no real memorable plays. But they got the family mic'd up. They got this. They got that.
They could have done without that. They could have done without that. I'll tell you that.
They need to move on from the whole family thing.
You got that
the
right.
Mom and dad, like, all right, we get it. Okay. Speaking of the family, and obviously Aiden, Michigan alum, his dad also.
Mm-hmm.
The Wolverines just keep rolling against, again, inferior opponent in UNLV. But, we talked about it in our instant reaction video. JJ McCarthy, I don't care if it's ECU and then UNLV, you still have to go out there and make the plays and make the throws. And he just looks everything that people are saying a first round talent quarterback. I mean, he is just on the money. He's evading sacks and throwing on the run. He took off on a couple runs, against UNLV, throwing a few deep balls. He's doing everything right. He's got like a 95% completion percentage right now. He hasn't thrown an interception, this year. I know, again, only 2 games, but I mean, I don't know. Everything out of JJ McCarthy is A+. The run game kind of it seems like it's figuring some stuff out. Donovan Edwards, it seems like they're trying to figure out ways to get Edwards the ball other than just like handing it to him. Mm-hmm. So I'll be curious to see how that evolves, over the next few weeks. Blake Corum looks fine. So, but man, the big takeaway for me, I guess, is what I'm saying after 2 games is JJ McCarthy is the real deal.
Yeah. And what cracks me up about how people will say, oh, well, the competition. Remember last year, like the entire season, it was like, man, can JJ do it? Like we didn't know it until the Ohio State game. It's like, are they gonna unleash this guy or what? Like we didn't really know what we had. He's looked incredible.
Yes.
The rest of the team, I'm a little concerned about. The defense is good. I can't put too much stock in the defense. They've been shutting out opponents. They've looked damn good. But like you said, Donovan Edwards hasn't really made a splash yet this year. And it almost feels like play calling or just this new kind of JJ-centric offense. It's just like it almost feels like he's kind of getting cut out. I mean, he only had 6 rushes for 9 yards, five catches for 25 yards in that game. Just haven't seen the Donovan Edwards we were kind of hoping was going to be this next level, maybe even usurping like Blake Corum as the best player on this offense.
Yeah.
And I just haven't seen it yet. That makes me a little bit nervous.
I think that's fair right at this point, but I think once Jim Harbaugh comes back and is on the sidelines, I think you'll see some more consistency, even with the offense and defensive coordinators' calls. With Harbaugh back, the man's there. It was cool to see the 2 interim coaches, Jay Harbaugh,
gotta love
Mike Hart. That was cool. And Hart had the post-game interview. That was cool to see. But once Harbs comes back from doing chain gang duties, it'll be good to see where they're at that point, I think. So
you always hear things about they're trying not to show too much in the first few games. Maybe they're not opening up the playbook, who knows? And the other thing is too, you always hear about with college, there's no preseason. So, kind of the first couple games, especially if they're against cupcakes, you are trying to work some kinks out and maybe figure out your offensive line and other schemes and stuff like that. So, I'll be curious to see what they do going forward, especially like you said, Ted, when Harbaugh comes back, because everything is there. The rest of the Big Ten, I guess Penn State has looked, pretty good. Kind of same thing, not very difficult opponents so far. Ohio State's been a little up and down. I think they'll probably figure it out and be just fine. But I mean, Michigan's still sitting at number 2. That's probably right where they're going to stay. And this should be their conference again. They should be right back in the playoffs. Same thing we said before the season, and that's what they've shown me so far.
Aren't you guys just ready for Harbaugh to be back? Something about these first 2 weeks, it's like it almost feels like there's like no juice. I'm like watching it. It's like a different team, and it's like a different television product when they're not cutting Harbaugh every 5 seconds for his reactions and stuff. It feels weird. I loved Mike Hart, getting the head coaching nod. That was awesome to see. The post game interview, awesome. But I'm missing Harbaugh on those sidelines.
Yeah. I agree 100% on that. And I will say this is, we're going to have fun all the way up to the national championship game, but isn't it great just to have football back, high school, college, pro? I mean, having Saturday night, having a couple Frosties, watching Texas and Alabama and seeing Nick Saban go down. It's just a great time to be alive.
Great. I mean, it was a full slate of games. We talked about it. So the Michigan UNLV game being on CBS, that was kind of odd. It was just it felt kind of weird. Obviously Nestler and Danielson are 2 of the best,
top notch. So that nothing against the broadcast, but it was just that music and them 2 and everything. It was like this should be Georgia. There should be Alabama. What. This is really strange right now. So, that'll be fine. Yeah. Next week, Michigan State, Washington on Peacock, it's just dealing with all that stuff, but whatever, man. It's so many good games. So
you're so right on the CBS thing. It is. I for one, I love CBS's presentation. I always have since I was a little kid. Vern Lundquist and Gary Danielson, 3:30, 2014. I mean, you were alive.
The Blazers.
Yeah, it's so good. It's something. I'm gonna get used to it. Hopefully, over the next year or whatever. All these different, TV broadcasts doing different games. But I miss Joel, man. I miss Gus. I miss the Fox Big Noon kickoff. I miss that noon slate. But we'll get used to it. I almost think this is more weirder than the teams changing conferences. I don't know why I have such an attachment to who televises the games, but I had something about it just like threw me for a loop on Saturday.
It takes a little getting used to. And are we, I mean, is this primetime stuff a little bit overblown? I see Fox, their pregame show is going 3 weeks in a row to follow them. I mean,
no, it's not. It's the biggest story in college football right now, man. Until they lose. Big. When I used to say this with like Jake Paul's boxing, until he lost, I was going to be there watching every fight. This is like until they lose, it's like, how do you not just keep following them? The quarterback stud, it's his son, another just layer to the story. Travis Hunter playing both ways. One of my other favorite little wrinkles, Jay Feely's son, Jace Feely, is their kicker, and he's a captain or a leader, as they call it. I think until they lose, and they got some really good games coming up, Colorado State rival this week, next week, Oregon. Then after that, if they get undefeated going into USC and Caleb Williams, that's the game of the year. Right.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you that. I just think it's a bit much out of the gate. I understand the love. I understand the hype. But, to be 3 weeks in a row there, I don't know. That's just, to me, it doesn't seem right.
It's the talk of, whether social media or it's the talk of college football right now, because College Game Day is going to be there too.
Yeah.
At Colorado. So you got big noon kickoff, you got Gus and Joel. College Game Day is going to be there. The shame is Colorado State's going to be a 10 o'clock kickoff. So, it's going to be, there's going to be all the pregame shows, but then you got to wait till 10 o'clock for the kickoff of Colorado State. So that kind of sucks. But
is it 10 o'clock at night, or it's a 10 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah. Cause we were talking about it was going to be, we were going to do it out of the Charlotte office if Colorado lost, but they kept winning. So it's like, no, that's going to be a bigger game than
that big crew.
Bigger crew there. They'll send a truck out there, but, then like you mentioned, Oregon and then USC after this. So that's when we'll know for sure. I mean, you can't discount. I gave my thoughts on the whole Deion thing. You can't. There were a one-win team last year, and they beat a team that was in the college football playoff last year and a program in Nebraska that they're down, but that's an established program with a proven head coach. So right now, that's the story. And you beat Oregon I say if you go 1-1 versus Oregon and USC, you got to take him seriously.
Yeah.
And the fun, it's all these side stories, and it's all the haters that came after Deion.
Matt Rule was like talking crap about Deion, and Shedeur came out and was like, "No, man, you're talking smack about my pops, and this is personal now." So it's all that kind of stuff, man. I don't know, it's fun.
It's all good.
You look at their stadium; it was like 20% full last year. Sellouts now. So
I mean, dude, it's just like it can't be overstated. Rich Rodriguez, we love him, we hate him. Always said it takes 4 years to turn around a program. That's why he always was pissy about not getting that fourth year at Michigan. Sanders did it in a couple months, man. It's just you can't overstate that fact. It's just unbelievable.
Well, yep, there's no doubt about that. He has definitely turned it around, and the juice is all on them. So we'll see when they do play a couple more really good opponents, like you said. Different topic, just real quick. Coco Gauff won her first major, and Joker won today at the U.S. Open. Kind of gets put to the side with all the football going on the weekend, but it's a great event, and it was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, U.S. Open, I didn't watch as much as I usually do. I kind of similar to golf. I'll watch the Grand Slams or, the majors.
Right.
U.S. Open is super fun, mostly because the matches are at good times. It's not like the Australian Open or some of the other ones where they're crazy early in the morning or whatever. But my daughter's she's getting into tennis too. So that's kind of piquing my interest a little more with tennis. But it's just crazy. We were watching the Coco Gauff match at work, and 19 years old, and you just won the U.S. Open. It's just kind of like your life is never going to be the same. I mean, you're now on that like Serena Williams trajectory. If you can keep your career going. Stay healthy, obviously, is a big part with tennis and everything. So it's crazy, and it's not to take anything away from the women because they're fantastic tennis players, obviously. Some of those men's matches, man, they hit the ball so fast and they are covering so much ground around that court. It's just like the shape that they have. We were talking to Noah Jacobs last week, obviously in incredible shape as a marathon runner. I can't imagine these tennis players, man, playing tennis for 4 straight hours. It's insane.
Yeah.
I have never really watched a tennis match. I'll be honest, man. Never watched one. I don't know. I don't even know if I could do one to report back on the pod. It would feel like torture. I just never got into that sport. It's not for me. Ted, you're talking about your messaging. I was talking about how you got like a dual screen experience going.
Yeah. With
football in the U.S. Open. I seem to be the odd man out. Everybody seems to love it. I mean, I saw the crowd. It was freaking humongous there, and they're lively. They're loving it. Celebrities everywhere. But I don't know. I just have never been able to get into it for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. Give it a try sometime, man. I'm serious. If you really wanted to enjoy something, it is a great sport. Like Matt said, you don't have to watch all of it, but Wimbledon, if you watch a Wimbledon final or the U.S. Open final, do you know how to keep score, by the way, in tennis?
I know it's like it's like 15, then 30, then 40.
Good enough.
I played it in gym class, man. It was a unit. You learned all that crap. Hated every second of it, but you learned it.
My first trophy I ever won was for tennis, so I got a little love there for tennis, man.
Nice.
It's all right. We're running a little long. Instead of having a Tedtertainment tonight, let me throw this out there. I tweeted something or texted you guys. Man, this NFL Red Zone.
All right.
It blew my mind today. I can't believe it's been on now, 15 years, I guess.
A long time, man.
Yeah, this is the first I've actually sat down. I will say this, though, and I'll only do it when the Lions aren't playing, Matt.
Right.
You were right on for that. But I don't think I could take a full slate of early games and the later games all in one dose, man. That whole first round of early games, my head was about popped off. There was so much back and forth
about it? And what didn't you get about what Red Zone was? What was so awesome about it?
No, I knew what it was, but I'd never seen how they present it. This Scott Hansen does a good job. Yeah, he does a great job with. I mean, I don't know how he does it. That's a tough gig all by himself.
Yeah,
but the way they do hey, the NFL's behind it, so it's going to be good. I mean, the way they do the graphics and they have stats over to the left side of the screen, and the way they just bounce between game after game. I mean, it's just awesome. It really is. I'm going to keep it no matter what my future plan is. I did sign up for an extra week of Fubo till I figure it out. I'm still holding out hope that ESPN comes back to cable. May happen, may not. But I really like the NFL Red Zone, and whatever program I end up with, I'm gonna get that.
You were Lloyd Christmas laser beam on this TV watching Red Zone, huh?
It was tough.
It's great, like you said. Obviously, when the Lions are on, I'm not flipping away from the Lions. I'm not the cut-ins that they do during the Lions game. That's good enough for me to get updates, or you can check scores on Twitter or whatever. But yeah, when the Lions aren't playing, it is a great way. Unless there's a matchup, say Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes or something like that you really want to watch. Flip on the Red Zone, and you can just sit back and be entertained the whole time. Because Scott Hansen is great, obviously, at what he does. The presentation, we've done it before down here. Call it like a whip around or like bases loaded. We do it during baseball and softball season when there's a full slate. Same idea. And we just bounce from baseball, softball game. Same idea as the Red Zone. And people love it. People will tweet or, email, whatever, and be like, we love that we can see the whole conference of baseball and softball in a couple hour presentation. I honestly don't know why it's not a thing for every sport, when there's a full slate of games, because it's almost a no brainer. But the Red Zone that's the way to go. If there's not one game you have to watch,
it's the real deal. The only little bit of criticism I would have, and it's very minor, if there's a way to pot down the broadcast teams a little bit more when Hansen's talking over them, it's a little you hear a little bit of that background. It's a little discerning, but that's the only complaint I really have.
Hansen is more so driving the ship, setting it up for the announcers to take over. So there's going to be that overlap. I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not in the industry, so I don't know.
Yeah, he's become a little more of the personality. But when it started, he literally would just be like, let's go to Detroit for
Right.
Detroit and Chicago.
Oh, gotcha.
Let's go over to Cincinnati for Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. But now he's kind of turned into a little bit of a personality, so he does a little more.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of what Jared's saying. But
it's all
great.
good.
It's good.
Absolutely.
So Sunday you'll be watching Lions. You're not gonna be red zoning it.
Nope, I'll be watching Lions for sure. And I will tell you today, like I said, that first dose of it, all the early games, I had to calm down a little bit. So the two national games with the national crews, Romo and Nance and the Fox crew, I just settled down and said, okay, I'm just flipping back and forth between these two games and listening to their commentary. And that's what I did for round 2.
Yeah. So now the question, you're talking red zone. We're talking, you talk Romo, Nance, and talked about Gus and Joel, CBS, Nestler, Danielson.
Right.
We've talked about it before. Monday night matchup tomorrow it's a pretty good one.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be watching Troy and Joe. Are you a Manning cast?
No,
we've talked about it before, but where are we sitting?
I'm watching Joe and Troy, and I'm going to record since I can. I'm going to record the Manning cast. So
your FUBU free trial has got to be just about your second FUBU free trial has got to be running up, man. I mean, you got to be
Saturday morning
decision.
It goes Saturday morning to Saturday morning. So I still have 2 more emails I can use. So I've got 2 more weeks after this, and I'm like I said, I'm hoping they pop it back to cable.
I will say if ESPN goes to Spectrum.
Yep.
I take back. You are the smartest man that's ever lived. You are the ultimate swindler. So I can't say anything, but I don't think that's going to happen. But if that does happen, I will be wrong.
It may not.
I'll say this. So Saturday, you said Saturday to Saturday,
right?
Michigan State, Washington is on Peacock. So I know you signed up for that.
Yeah, I have Peacock.
And then the Michigan game is at 7:30, but on Big Ten Network. So
I have Big Ten Network.
Right. So you might be okay on Saturday. If you end up dropping ESPN, you might be able to, you can catch Michigan State and then the Michigan game if you have to.
Oh, I got you. Well, one way or the other, Matt, I will be getting ESPN Saturday, whether it's right out of my pocket or another free trial. I mean, I can't live without that.
Is FUBU really this easy of a free trial? I mean, it kind of sounds. I actually had my brother text me, said it's the best. Like he basically he's like, this is brilliant.
It's simple.
It's kind of simple. Intriguing. I mean, I'm paying $75 a month right now for YouTube TV, which I love. But
I mean, I'm going to run out of time eventually, but it's simple right now. It really is. Wow. All right, let's call it a podcast, boys. This has been the 3 Point Podcast presented by the Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center. Make sure you sign up for a membership. Get yourself healthy. Sign up for their October 21st Go Green, Go Blue 5K run walk as well. We also want to thank our local friends. They include AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori Shook and Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. Again, a thank you to Tyler from Michigan High School Football Frenzy. Follow him on the socials at MishFB Frenzy. And this Friday night, we have the Z92.5 Castle Game of the Week. It's September 16th, Corunna at Owasso. I'm going to a little bit miss my sideline duties, but I'm going to go up and join Casey and Bart to offer a few comments throughout the broadcast. Hopefully don't step on any toes, but I'm looking forward to being back up at Willman. It's going to be a lot of fun no matter what happens on the field, but it's always great to be up at Willman, boys. It's nothing like it.
It's such a cool environment. We've talked about it so much, but especially because, even if Corunna is going to be a heavy favorite, seems like Owasso has turned it around a little bit. Like they might have a little bit of hope going into the game, which is big. So,
well, they definitely do. A few years ago, I mean, Owasso was going through these stretches of 0 wins, 0 wins, 0 wins. Then they went 1-8. That one win was against Corunna.
Right.
I mean, they're playing for something, man. They're playing for pride. Yep. I mean, when you line up against Corunna, the crosstown rival, you don't. I mean, maybe they might not win, but you don't want to get blown out. They want to show like this is a new program. We're taking a turn for the better, and you hope it's a good game, but we'll see.
Well, we'll be there, and you can hear it live on Z925.com. Follow us on the socials, at 3 Point Pod, and like I always say, peace and love. We really need it right now. Everybody, be kind. Thanks for listening.